Hello everyone. Hopefully you can see and hear me. I just remembered that one of the things I haven't done yet is open Twitch so that I can see and hear you. So enjoy the insane cat, who was part of the reason I'm late, because I was trying to get ready and she was not making it easy. She's like, no, now would be such a great time to play with me. I'm like, it really would not be the best time. And she was so plaintive and sad. It was like, oh my gosh, dude. Your life is not this bad. All right, I'm almost there. Almost there. I see Quindy, and Quindy's seen the kitty. And Pendrake has seen the kitty. Zachariah M, I think. Green users. I can see the end of the chat from Anne's stream as well, so I'm just trying to make sure that I'm not looking at people who were here before, but wow, she's really just going to town on that, isn't she? You're not going to leave any for your sister then, huh? Okay. Very, very sweet of you. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, hold on. What? Thing on, didn't I? Yes, I was trying to click to get my preview screen and not succeeding very well, I guess we would say. All right, so I do want us to enjoy the insane little kitty. I mean, as much as she drives me crazy sometimes, I do really love her. But she does drive me crazy sometimes. She's been extra Dennis the Menace lately. So she had, you know how there are those cats that like to take the toilet paper off the roll? She hadn't done that. But if she found a roll, like a spare roll, I had a spare roll of paper towel too, she would go to town on those. Her sister's lying down on the couch, and I thought that she would hear the noise of the catnip and come running. But Chai can sleep, for a young cat especially. Like when she after I had lunch, she was lying in my arms, and I'm like, well, my arm is going to sleep, and you're just flopping there. But how can I deny you? So we thought we were safe with the toilet paper on the roll, and then the other night, she was just taking bites out of it too. It wasn't like she was unspooling it. She was like taking chunks out of it, was what she found fun. Let's just make sure you're positioned, since you're not very good at gravity. Oh, you've had the catnip now, haven't you? We can see it in your little eyes. You're all like, what? What? You gonna go sleepy now? She's like, no, I still want to climb on your desk. That's the best fun I've ever had. And she sleeps like this a lot, where she's like half out of things, or she has both her legs in front of her. We call it the Superman sleeping pose. So I will keep Kitty in the scene. Maybe I can even just move this little smidge. I had it on the other one in case Corbin decided to grace us with his presence again. Alas, apparently not. I won't need my palette for a second, so we don't need to worry about palette cam. So last week I was working on finishing up the bases for some figures. And then I did as I put it, putting the frame on. I didn't get a chance to do that on the stream, but I did that later. So now they have their black base rims, which is like when you put a piece of art in the frame, I think. So there's the completed Pen Dowel Bearer. And here is the completed, I want to say, Giant Leech. And who else do we have? I feel like I am forgetting one. This is Mako, the Tiki Shark. Who is just super fun. And I fixed the little, when I tried to take him off my holder once, I went backwards and chipped the back of his tail. And what was that? I don't remember if I showed this guy finished. I do want to do, a critique and repaint of him, but he is not the one that I decided to do today. But that's another one that we did almost all of on stream. I did the eye later, and I want to say like these tentacles. I was going to call them mouse tentacles, but you know, it's a brain monster. Does it have a mouth? I don't know. I am not the ecologist of the brain monsters. So it had also been my hope to get my photography, you know, for miniature studio set back up. Studio, the little square with the lights that got superseded by a cat bed. But then I last minute decided to sign up to an online ocular octopus, says Zachariah. I signed up online for a gouache course, and I'll talk about that a little more later. So I don't have my camera set up to take the before pictures. So I'm probably not gonna do these guys today. If I end up needing time, we can maybe do a compare and contrast. If you recall, this one was supposed to be kind of like the one in the Dungeons and Dragons movie, which I hope everybody's seen by now. I think at the time that I was painting it, it had just come out. Is my light in the best place? I don't know. And then this one started with, I just wanted to work with the Raven Feather metallic color that came out last ReaperCon. And then after I did that, it was like, well, that's pretty cool, so let's finish them up. And since the patterning by coincidence ended up being kind of like a panda's patterning, I made a panda bear. So this will give us an opportunity both to look at kind of two approaches to the same subject, and then look at each of them individually. Actually, this guy still isn't done now that I think about it. I keep forgetting he's got these little skin flaps. So I have apparently forgotten that yet again. But what I can do kind of the review and repaint on is this guy. So I'll keep it in my hand for now, maybe. I don't know, maybe it's easier to see if I put it on one of these. Although it's not, you know, it's presentation full for something that's finished. That stuff is actually too sticky for the Bones USA material. So I got this tape. It's Gorilla tape. It's double-sided. It's a little puffy, so if the bottom of your miniature isn't even, that helps. And I like it a lot, but it is very hard to get off of the Bones USA, I have noticed. So I'm going to go back to my old Scotch, I think they call it mounting tape. I'm just looking for scissors now. And he has a small base. So, well, that piece of tape is gone. That's okay. She'll have fun with it. This cat loves tape. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird. Okay, hold on. I think the other kitty is here, but she can't get in the room. They're not very good at doors. Come here, kitty. Come on. Come in and get some drugs. Come on. Yeah, you can get your share. I'll put some more out because your sister was kind of steely. There you go. Don't look at where I put it. Cheater. There you go. Double cats now. They do have such tiny little mews, especially that one. And then she has these like balls that she plays with, and she makes that sound. She's like, it sounds like she's dying, or she's trapped under something heavy, or she fell down the well. But she's just talking to like her little toys. But the first few weeks, we would go running and look and be like, every time we go look, she seems to just have her little toys. So I think she's just talking to her imaginary friends. And it's like, okay, that's fine. You can do that. They've been having a very sisterly week in the sense that sometimes there's bapping and sometimes there's snuggling. Zachariah, mew, mew, mew. I'm going to have one soon. Ah, medium hair tabby with white markings. Woohoo. Brian and Shannon's fine. Oh, I think I saw that on Facebook. Thank you for giving the kitty a home. It occurs to me that I probably need to dust this, so hold on just a second. I mean, not that you can see the miniature right now. Yes, that is true. Let me go. Well, here, I'll just. You're fine. Nobody's getting disciplined or anything. Not that that happens very often. Sometimes when Corbin is very, very, very stubborn about trying to scratch down the door. All right, so this is Kobzar Soloveco. I believe. All right, I feel like my lights are not being helpful. Let's see if that looks a bit better, doesn't it? I think, I don't know. So this is Kobzar Soloveco. This is still available. It originally sold as a fundraising miniature for the Ukraine, and I think they aren't continuing to disperse the funds, but if you missed them or you wanted another one, it is available. And this is in fact the second one that I painted. The first one was on stream and was painted in a more, traditional Ukraine kind of colors. All right, let's get the remaining cat back. That's funny because the other one's so sleepy. I really would expect her to just go to sleep. So let me just get technology for a minute. I put some pictures on my phone for easier reference. But wait, what did I do with the... Okay. Sorry, I missed Space Cadet, I guess. Let's just go to recents then, and hopefully you're not going to see my whole life, boring as it is. So this is the one that I painted originally on stream. UNICEF, was it? No, I feel like it was a specific Ukraine charity that I'm not... But I might be mixing it up, because after I painted it, it went on raffle in one of the Nova Charities fundraisers to raise more money. So that's why I can't show you this figure or tell you even to look at it at Reaper, because it's not there. So this, I looked up a bird that's in Europe, and it has that blue throat and everything. And then, the blue and yellow or Ukrainian colors. And I just picked some variations of things that were on the bird. And if you want, you can go back and watch these streams. Do I know which number they are on YouTube? No. But no. If you know when the Kickstarter 6 was, it's like a little bit before that, I think, because I painted this guy at the Kickstarter 6 party. When actually the pictures of this guy are also on that link that Gwendy just shared, because I sent them to Ron. And there's also pictures on a gray background. I think gray backgrounds show the colors more accurately. So that was the traditional one, and then I painted this in a fairly different color scheme, other than I painted sunflowers like sunflowers both times, which, I mean, I could have painted a different flower. But the reason that this color scheme is like this is, as I say, I was at the Kickstarter 6 party, and these were the paints that were part of the Kickstarter. So this was a set of 12 new colors, and then this one, I think, was called Painted Picks. Each of us picked a couple of them. Those ones are Michael's for sure. I couldn't find that. Actually, I think a bunch of us picked that. So there was overlap in our choices. It wasn't that we all like different things. But this is the palette of colors I had, and I thought it would be an interesting activity for me, because we stayed longer or came earlier than the end of the Kickstarter thing. So there would be times when we're sitting in the room together, or some people are off having important meetings with Ron or doing other things. And I painted something for Joe for role playing, and then there weren't really any new miniatures for me to work on, so I was like, all right, I'll just paint something using these colors as kind of a limited color scheme. Now this is not very limited, but these color choices do affect some of the issues that this figure has. And I did pull them out because I figure, aren't people starting to get paints? It's like if you have certain things only in your Kickstarter 6 order, you have started receiving shipping, and I thought paints was on that list, but I could be making a mistake. So anyway, I did pull those out. But it is also possible, like you don't have to know the same colors that you painted something with to revise or edit it. And I've done that in previous episodes and probably will do it again sometime because I don't always remember what I did with things. Okay, so I made some notes for myself of if I were giving this a very thorough critique. So this is going to be a more thorough critique than you can get at ReaperCon, probably because, everybody who can give you a critique is pressed for time, but you can talk to multiple people. So if you kind of aggregate what you might learn, it might hit all of these points. But I'm just explaining that, we can't necessarily spend the amount of time I'm going to spend here, and we don't have the time to look. So, this morning I spent breakfast and I was looking at this and looking at the photos, and I was like, oh, I could do that and see how this works. And I'm not able to do any of that, live and in person quickly enough. So I'm just I didn't really show the back before, so I'm going to let you look at that. And if you're watching this video later on Twitch or on YouTube, you can pause there and you can pause here and you can try to see what you spot that you think is not great about this, or what you think is great. I mean, a critique should include the things that work as well as the things that don't work. And that is where I'm going to start. So I think this is kind of an unusual color scheme, and that's interesting. It's nice to see. We enjoy seeing something a little different now and then, as much as we enjoy, this kind of color is associated with these feelings or creatures or events. It's also kind of interesting to see something a little different sometimes. And I think it does have a melancholy feeling that suits the existence of the miniature. Sadly, this miniature is not moot. It's unfortunate that Reaper can't continue to raise money for it. I think it's just accounting-wise, it becomes a nightmare to do that forever. But clearly the Ukraine situation, this is like 2 years later, I think, is not resolved. And I don't know if you can see a little bit there, like there's kind of some purple, there's kind of some yellow on the head. There's some pinks and purples and yellows in the wings. There's some like reds and purples in the shading of various places. I will get the photo out again. And that's more visual interest that, is a nice thing to add when you can. So you can see that there's like subtle touches of various colors to hopefully help make it a little more interesting to look at. Now this picture also demonstrates one of the issues, which is there's like this little white thing on the fingers, and I think it's actually like an artifact from, the production or something, and I should have scraped it off, and I didn't, so I may end up doing that. And I don't think you can see in the photos that I didn't get all of the mold lines and artifacts and stuff. But I'm not sure you're going to be able to see it. Like there's some lines there along the side of the eye that don't look very natural. And there is a trace, there's a trace of a mold line. Oops. You can kind of see it there, I think. Which, if you're trying, so I'm trying to give feedback, like if you entered the MSP Open and to have sculpt issues that are unaddressed on the head of the figure that people can very easily see. It's not like, the mold lines under the sleeve or something. It does detract a little. So in painters, that's not like a huge deal, but it is it can be a little bit of a deal. It can be something that is noticed. So if you can avoid doing that, if you can not be in a dark room in a busy rush prepping your miniatures, which is what happened here. No, I don't think it's a guitar pick. If you look, you can just kind of see that there's some bits it's on the bed of the nails, not the tip of the nails. There's a couple of things that are poking up. And I don't recall, like if it was on the other one, I think I did shave them off. You don't need a guitar pick when you've got built-in nails, I would guess. So that's kind of the good things. I mean, it's, oh wait, there was one more, I think. So there's some painted variation of textures, which is nice because it's interesting to look at, and it also demonstrates your painting abilities a bit. So there's like some feathery, it's not smooth there. There's the brush strokes echo the sculpted pattern. And the NMM has a higher range of contrast, so it looks shinier. And also there's like the similar kind of sparkle on the strings of the instrument. So you've got a mix of different textures and surfaces reflected with paint as well as in the sculpture. And that is a nice thing to do when you can do it on your miniatures. So what is less great apart from the mold line thing? So the majority of the colors on here, actually, where's my little gizmo? Hold on. The majority of the colors here are in the middle of the value scale. So probably around there. So there are some areas that are a bit darker. The instrument's probably more like that. And certainly there's shading and highlighting, but it's like the feather area, the shirt, the belt, everything other than a few items, and the flowers do jump out at you because of that, are here. And that is not as great compositionally. I haven't kind of broken the figure up so that if you're, weighted, the further away it gets, the more some parts of it just kind of fade into a blob and you see some kind of purple and the yellow flower and sparkles or circles that are the NMM. So it's not a great job of making it legible at a distance. Where if we look at the other fundraising figure I painted recently, like you can tell what's happening with this guy. And yes, he's bigger. But it's also that there's a lot more, the eyes are here, the teeth are here, the wood is here, the other colors are here. It works across the value spectrum for the overall color of an area. So when we talk about contrast, it's not just what's in the shadows and what's in the highlights. It's also how are you using values to interpret the figure or create moods or whatever thing in the overall values of different sections. Where, and this guy is super clear because it's like really dark and really light. So, it's almost like a black and white figure with some, shading and highlighting. So that's a big issue that it has. That issue is compounded by the fact that it doesn't have a deepest dark, the highest possible deepest dark. None of the paints in those sets are here. So they're some of them are pretty dark, but they're not, they're more like the next one up, and not, true black or as dark as black or blue liner or something like that. And then likewise, this was my lightest color, and that is, value, might even be value 3, I don't know. But it's certainly not value 1. So I have a compressed range of contrast for the shadows and the highlights. So if I had this mid-tone situation, but I had the full range, I might be able to, push some things to be more noticeable and less noticeable and break it up that way. If I had higher saturation, so that's another thing. These colors are also all similar saturation-wise. The yellow is partly sticking out because it is slightly more saturated than some of the other colors. So they're all muted versions of those colors. So I'm hampering myself a little with this choice, which is one reason to do a limited color scheme, because you learn stuff like that. But today what I think I mainly would do is we're gonna add a dark, and we're gonna add lighter. Not that one though. Not that one. Hold on, I'm almost there. We're gonna add lighter, and we probably are gonna add a little bit of saturation. So that is kind of like the main problem. And you may say, but I've seen, 2D paintings or other artwork that don't go from black to white and it works. Or even you've seen busts or large monster figures that don't go from black to white. And that's true. The problem is, the smaller it is, the more you need that exaggerated contrast to help make it legible to the person. So this guy does not go from pure black to pure white, but it's a heck of a lot larger, and it's a simpler sculpt. So it's pretty easy for you to figure out what's happening. I mean, the eyeball doesn't come out, enough to the viewer. But that's the thing that I left that way so we could fix it sometime. What else did I have in my notes? Oh, so the two areas that do draw the most attention, let's get a nice brush action, are the flowers and then this NMM. And that is in the middle of the figure. So this is a focal point of interest, but what I really want is kind of more interest in this area and not you looking at his knees like that. That's not really what I want. So can I balance the rest of it out? Do I have to tone the NMM down? I don't know. We haven't done it yet. Probably, I'm hoping to balance the rest of it out with saturation and a little bit of extra value. So I did keep trying to highlight the head to get that, to get more pop. But because it's a larger area and the highlights are not directly, and it's a sphere, so the highlights are not directly adjacent to anything dark, it's not gonna be as compelling looking as shininess, where you've got really dark next to really light, unless I'm doing some other stuff. And then the last thing I would do, and this is like one of the things that's not easy to do in person. Okay, well, I did two things. So this is like a shelfie. So if you put your entries into the MSP Open, the background isn't going to be that crowded, but there are going to be other figures around, whether they're in your display or somebody else's. There are going to be people on the other side of the table walking around. There's visual clutter. So it's not just, does your figure look great in isolation? To a certain extent, how people respond, and I'm not saying the judges, because we do stop and look at just your things, but you also want to wow people that are wandering around the room looking at stuff, right? So if you look at this random array of things that were on my shelf, this one is not the guy that stands out the most. So the things with bright colors stand out, the things that are large stand out, the things that have, like there's a light there, dark, light, dark, that pops. This has high, these guys both have high contrasting colors, and this poor little guy has none of those things. So even if you're trying to make a character that's subdued or whatever, I would say let's remember that the purpose of a miniature is to be looked at. So looking cool actually supersedes realism, accuracy, all that stuff people are always worrying about. You've got to try to do that within the constraints of, am I making someone want to stop and look at this miniature? Even if it's a guy that thematically is lurking in the shadows and does not want anyone to stop and look at him. As a miniature, he does. So, can I fix this? Who knows? I also have my Beyond the Kit colors here, and then these are like things I pulled out for the saturation part. I didn't have a chance to shake everything before the show because of all the cat shenanigans, so I may have to use my loud thing on camera. And this is not enough water in here. So this I actually set up last night. So I started this gouache thing. So gouache is basically it's opaque watercolor. So it's made with the same kind of materials as watercolor, but like miniature paint, they make it matte because the original, well, okay, not the original function of it because it's hundreds of years old, but in the golden age of illustration, it was very popular because it's quick like watercolor, but you can get, more opaque and dramatic effects, and it's matte, so it's easy to photograph for, reproductions in the magazines and stuff. So it was quicker than oil paint, but had the same kind of, dramatic range, and you can do light on dark and that kind of thing. But it's water cleanup and it's matte. So it's cool stuff. Acrylic gouache, which you may see the term, is basically miniature paint. So it's acrylic that's matte. And in the fine art world, making everything matte is unusual, so they tend to highlight that to attract people who are doing illustration type stuff rather than clarifying or emphasizing that it's acrylic and not because with the gouache and watercolor they pick up again. In fact, I'm going to embarrass myself now. So I watched the class, and he's making it look so easy, and I'm like, well, I should practice a little bit. I'm not going to go nuts. I'm not really going to try and do the whole picture. I'll just practice a little bit. And I just set up this palette with this paper, which I do not think is sufficient to the mixing needs. I think you need that thick kind of paper that the Masterson palette has. So I have a Masterson palette for the class, but it's like a really enormous one, and I just wanted to be quick. And it's not quite as awful as I remember. It's awful, but it's not quite as awful as I remember it. And also we're working with, flat brushes. Do I have an example here? No, because that's how rarely I work with flat brushes. So like this, but pretend it's flat on the top, which is, I've seen people do amazing things with them. It's very useful brush type, blah, blah. And it remains a mystery to me. So the guy that I'm taking this class with, he paints with it in a similar painterly way that he would with oil. So the point is to have some of the textures and brushstrokes and stuff, but probably not that many. And trying to have enough paint to finish something, and the consistency, it's all a real challenge with gouache given the other ways I've learned to paint. So basically I'm just trying to say that I have been reminded, and I like to be reminded as a teacher, of what it's like you watch somebody do the video and they make it look simple, and then you try it and it's horrible and you don't even understand exactly what you weren't doing right. Because I don't understand why I have so much more trouble mixing paint than these guys. And then applying the paint, but that's, the flat brush is part of that. I just have to practice with that more. But basically it was very demoralizing. And even though I know, I've only just started to do this, I can't expect myself to be amazing at it, but it's so bad that can I even, will I even be able to get something decent enough to send into this guy for critique? Or will it just be too humiliatingly awful? I don't know. All right, so I'm going to start with the shirt, which I want to keep I think I want it to be a little lighter since the loot is darker, and we're going to put some more shadows in the face. I think keeping the shirt a little lighter to contrast with each of those would be good, but it might need a little more saturation as well. And I probably also want to lighten up the leather, I don't know. So the initial shirt color was this, and searching for this and I couldn't find it, and I'm like, I don't have time to look it up online and find out what number it is, so I'm just gonna like grab something and live with it. So what did I grab? I grabbed spring green, then I believe this is the yellow mold. But since this is a pretty desaturated yellow, it already has a lot of white in it, so I might need a little more yellow, so I grabbed canary yellow. And these are some of the ones I didn't shake. So the chat is silent. Was my turnip so awful that you had to turn off the stream and go look at something that made sense? Or are people just very quiet today? But I thought, since I'm always trying to be real about the process as well as how you get there, and the emotional struggle as well as the learning struggle, I thought it would not be a terrible idea if I were, if I shared my experience. Even knowing that it's never going to be like when you watch the person in the video, knowing that, and knowing that my previous attempts at gouache have A, been very few, and B, been frustrating. That's why I wanted to take a class in it. Even knowing all of those things and trying to be chill and kind to myself and all of that stuff, I just was like, oh my God, I'm so much further back than I thought even though I kind of knew that I sucked, just facing the reality of the level of suck. But, I feel better today, and the solution to the feeling is to get, to see if I can do better. It's not to say, oh, I'm terrible at this and I'll never be able to do it. I'm going to go watch the video again, and now I understand some of the things I may not have been paying enough attention to. Hopefully I can kind of figure out some of the things I'm doing wrong. Green user is using messy sculpting materials and cannot type. Well, that is a very good reason not to type. I'm pretty sure that there are some paint splatters on my keyboard from bringing it over here from when I stream. But I'm also pretty sure there's some snack debris on there too, so it needs to be cleaned off in general. Because it's possible I have snacks in my computer sometime. Zachariah, practice, thoughtful reflection, reference are all wonderfully useful things for new challenges. Yes. And that is a thing I think people often don't do. It's like, okay, so now I have to figure out, what am I doing differently than this person? Or what might I need to adapt to the way I am? I typically need bigger pools of paint than other people do here. And I have experienced that in other respects. So maybe I just need to remember to mix a lot of paint. And he actually even had issues with that. He said, you always forget to mix as much paint as you need, and it's hard to match the color. That gouache has, there's a cord and it's in the way. Gouache has a large, what they call color shift. So the color that it looks wet can be very different than the color it looks dry. Which you'll find that a little bit in acrylics, but it's not like a chronic noticeable issue where it's so much a thing that people talk about with gouache. I think I use some of this Requiem Red. I don't know why Ron named it that. It's so hard for me to say. Requiem Red to do the shading in the shirt. And that was kind of trying to draw colors together. But since I use a lot of that elsewhere, I think I don't want to emphasize that more now. So I've got this Barrow Gray, bluey, but I think my blue liner bluey is probably bluer. So I'll stick with that. Or even add in a little something like that if I need to. Pendrake TG, there's a streamer named Maddie. She does gouache streams rarely these days, but she'd be a good resource for gouache. One of the problems with gouache is that it's one of these things. I mean, acrylic paint is like this too. You can use it a lot of different ways. So the way this guy is using it is he's not trying to do the nice blend things. He's doing like little, like I want light here, I just do a stroke of light there. I do dark there. He might go over, but he's not trying to make that kind of smooth gradation. He's trying to be more painterly, which isn't honestly even how I oil paint. Because the guy I usually oil paint with he kind of works like we do, where he works wet over dry, and then he's refining the previous work and fixing the edges and stuff after the paint's dry, or at least mostly dry. So I'm trying to mix up a more darker version of that. But I will take a look and see if I can see her stuff. And I wouldn't be surprised if she also has like a YouTube or something where you might be able to see other things. But, I mean, he did talk about working with the material, but he maybe didn't talk about it enough for those of us who are like starting from square one. Because it's like I understand most of what he was talking about in terms of here's where you put the shadow or the light, or you do this or you do that. It's like, yeah, I'm good with all that. I'm not saying I have nothing to learn there. There's always something to learn. But, that was not the confusing part for me. It was like, okay, I get the theory. I don't get how to make the paint do the thing. That's where I'm. Okay, so I can see that that's still wet. So part of the reason I lost green here is because I was shifting red, which, I mean, is a totally workable way to do shadows. And if I wasn't emphasizing the red as elsewhere, maybe I would keep more of that. But I think I'm going to just wipe some of that out and lighten the shirt up a little bit. Here, I'm going to put my watch on Do Not Disturb, because it seems like some of my friends or somebody are having conversations and it's going bing, 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 and that is annoying for all of us. I, for a long time, didn't have notification sounds on at all. But as part of my attempts to address my ADD deficits, I like to be reminded of the time. So I just wanted it to beep on the hour and the half hour, but somehow the quarter hour got thrown into, which whatever, I guess that's fine. So I had to turn the sound back on to get the notifications about the time stuff. But that also means that I get the notifications about other stuff. And it's not, I actually don't have a bad sense of, if you ask me roughly what time it is, that's not always a question that ADHD people can excel at. And I generally know that. I'm just spacing out on, and what am I doing with this time? Am I doing the things I'm supposed to do? Am I being productive? Didn't I want to do X? That part I'm terrible at. So that's greener now, instead of kind of fading to brown, being indistinct. Put some more, we'll put a few more shadows back in for the folds, but I do feel like now that I'm looking at it, covering up more of the red brown situation, as much as contrasting colors, or colors opposite each other on the color wheel can work really nicely for doing shadows and highlights and stuff. Oh, there's another mold line there, but that's not as noticeable. But given how much I use that color elsewhere on the figure is kind of more what the problem is. That it's diluting the effect of the contrast between this area and this area by having a lot of the same color in there. Hendrik says, when I want to know the time, I just tap and look, but that's a phone. Yes, the thing is, I want to be reminded to know the time. Like, I want to be reminded to acknowledge that time is passing, and I might just be sitting there and scrolling on my phone or watching TV or something else and not realize, not think about consciously that I have been doing this a while. I am not doing the things I want to do. Should I go do one of those? So I'm not saying it necessarily works, but at least it's a little thing that like flicks my mind and goes, hey there, do you actually know what time it is? Like, are you thinking about what time it is in the context of your day and not in the context of this is what the clock says? So it's meant to be more that kind of reminder. It was funny. There was those 10 years where people didn't wear watches very much. So, smartphones came in and a lot of people just were like, why do I need to wear a watch if my phone is there to tell me what time it is? And we were playing a role-playing game that was set in modern times. And I said something, that my character's like, all right, let's synchronize our watches or something. And my husband, who is the DM, was kind of like, okay, and who's wearing a watch? And me and the other woman were like, us. Because I liked watches that kind of look like jewelry, so I did keep on wearing watches. And my phone doesn't always fit in my pockets. So it's like a lot of people did stop wearing watches for a hot minute there until they came out with smartwatches. But not everyone did. And I wasn't sure I would like the smartwatch at first. And not just because it's not pretty. They at least have better bands now. So that mollified me somewhat. But then to my surprise, I did like it. Because of stuff like that, I like that, especially like when I'm at ReaperCon, it'll tell me my next thing. So every time I look at my watch, I will know that 2 o'clock, I got my class, I gotta get my crap together, be mentally prepared, be there. It just, like I used to, when I would go to conventions, I would have like a little paper schedule that I made up with my activities. And then I would like compulsively check that. So I'd have to like get it out of my pocket or whatever. And this helps my compulsion to, because I know I screw up. So I've got a lot of fail-safes and built-in things that I didn't realize I was doing that. And I don't have a lot of them too, but there are a few areas, like I never don't know where my keys are. I come in, I put the keys back in my bag, I put the bag in a particular place. That kind of thing is not a problem that I have. Because of having had it, I developed, verging on compulsive procedures to address the situation. So the checking my schedule was one of those compulsive procedures that I came up with. And the smartwatch lets me reassure my brain that I do know about the thing that's coming up so that I can enjoy the thing that's happening right now. And keeps me from looking like an insane person rooting through there. I do it with like plane tickets and stuff too. I'll compulsively check my plane ticket and then go to look at the departures thing, make sure the gate hasn't changed and stuff like that. once I'm on the plane, I just fall asleep because I'm like, any screw up from here on out is not me. So I have now been absolved of responsibility. And I can sleep. So all my travel stress is not about, planes shouldn't be in the air or whatever. It's, am I screwing up somehow? All right, I need to stop fussing with this shirt because this shirt is not the story of this figure, is it? All right. So I did say we needed a little more shadows, probably. Get rid of that red. A little bit more there. Sakurai is going to set reminders at ReaperCon because he has stacked things deep. Phones are the equivalent of a pocket watch. Guys tend to go with less gear if possible. I used to have a pocket watch. For a while, I almost wonder if I was one of those people who... there are people who... Clocks, they put a watch on, a traditional watch. I assume it does not happen with these kinds. And something about their internal rhythms will throw it off. I think probably I just had bad watches or something. But I used a pocket watch for a little while, partly because I thought it was cool. And partly to have something reliable. And now I'm wondering where my pocket watch is, because like my mom got it engraved and stuff. So I'm sure that I kept it. But yeah, I am not a minimum gear person. If you need a Band-Aid, an aspirin, a wet nap, a napkin, I'm the person you should come see at ReaperCon because I will have things. I will have things to deal with situations. I have tape, scissors. I have like a whole little subset of things. So there's like the things I bring to travel, but then there's the things I specifically bring to conventions is another set of stuff. So those I won't have outside of the hall probably, but I will have. All right, we need a little bit of highlights. And so I'm putting just a little bit of that yellow in to kind of, as you go lighter and you have more white, you lose saturation. Plus, where the highlights are happens to be near where the face is. So if I make that a little greener, a little brighter, it will, hopefully the red and the green will play off each other and help get some more attention up here. That's the theory, at any rate. But yeah, when you want to add saturation to things, it doesn't necessarily have to be all over, and in fact, it shouldn't necessarily be all over. I can also come in with the glaze at the end and just add even more yellow, if I want. I mean, I don't know that it's necessary yet, to the areas that are further up the body or nearer the face or whatever. Now, there's no face to compete with on the back, so I don't mind putting a little bit of this on the back. I do mind putting a little bit on the back of his neck, as I am doing. And from that angle, that is kind of near the face. Just get a little bit there. Wanted this lighter overall, so I'm gonna need, oops, you know what, I'm just gonna push this up just a little smidge, my apologies, because I seem to not be remembering to hold the figure further down, so maybe I should move the camera. And is that even sufficient moving the camera? We'll find out. I'm going to go up a bit again. So that was the original color I was using to create the highlights. I mean, that's a lot. That looks clashy, but we're gonna give it a shot. We're gonna see what happens. It might be too much, but since it's gonna be just in little places where upper level highlights are, it's not like I'm painting a large area with this. Doesn't quite go green, which I think you can kind of see that this is a softer green there. So in theory, it will hopefully not be like an eye-searingly not matching situation. And a similar effect would have been if I had just used the original color and then I came back with a little, well, I'd do something in between that yellow and that green. That was that similar kind of brighter, doesn't quite go. And I did it as a glaze because the underlying surface would be visible through it. It should have a similar effect of not emphasizing the way that the colors don't quite go. If that makes sense. And do I want to go even a little lighter? I think that I might. I think that I might also want to put some light color at the bottom of those folds, because those are neat kind of folds. And that adds a little movement or whatever you want to call it right there. So I think that's already a little better for the shirt, but let's live dangerously and do just a little bit more. Oop, I still have forgotten since last week to go see if my classes are actually selling or not. Or if I've made too weird of a topic this time. I'm kind of excited about it. I feel like I'm learning things. It's sometimes when I have to figure out how to explain things to other people, I understand things better. Not always, but it does help, I think. That's even a technique to try to see how well you understand something is to pretend you're explaining it to somebody else. I mean, you can actually explain it to someone else. Pendrake, what's the topic? It's, what did I call it? Size does matter. But what are the painting differences between painting like this, a human that's like this scale, a human that's like a giant, a bust? What do you have to change in your painting? Or what do you have the option to add, and what do you need to add or remove or whatnot? So I am going to be talking about painting, normal gaming scale humanoids. But I think in the class we're going to have, hopefully we're going to have a very specific, cool, new, larger figure to work on. But at the very least, it occurred to me that some of these parts should be green, which is how not green they were because of being shadowed. So I'm going back in to some parts that should look like shirt. And I think I made his little pants green as well, but this is not the story of the figure, so I'm not really gonna go nuts on the pants. I am just gonna add enough green that the cuffs have more context. Are you going to use multi-size mouselings or the 2 sizes of dwarfs for the class? No, we're probably going to work on a larger figure, and I'm going to focus on what specifically changes to a larger figure, and some of that's, contrasted by what you do with a smaller figure. And since most people will have had more practice with those, and I think you can get there by inference, and it's only half an hour, I'm hoping that will work. That's kind of the problem I'm having now as a teacher, because clearly I'm not having the problem with reminding myself what it feels like to not know what you're doing and think you suck. I managed to remind myself of that quite successfully. But I have reached the point where I know more than an hour and a half's class worth of stuff on a topic, so I kind of like have to figure out what to put in and what to leave out. That has become more challenging because my approach has always been to just everything. Put everything I know, at least in the handout, if not in the actual class. And I don't have time to write a book, so I don't think that's how I should do that this time. And probably no one wants to read the book. Just give him a little bit of a acknowledgement that he has lower. Pendrake was thinking the same figure in 2 sizes would help with the topic. Well, I mean, it's the emphasis is on what's different when you're painting large, but the discussion will be various sizes, and that would be cool. Maybe next time I'll do that. But my hope is that I'll be getting a new special thing. If I don't, maybe those would be good ones. I kind of wanted to have a human face because, if you're painting a bust, the majority of them are human faces, and there's some specific things about skin that you can talk about become a bit different when you're at a larger scale than a smaller scale. So I can't remember how much of that dwarf face is actually showing because I'm pretty sure there's a lot of beard. All right, so now I think probably feathers, or no, maybe we'll do something with this brown stuff. And in the meantime, I'm going to hopefully very carefully. Nope, not with that. I know there's a scalpel in here. And that's the other, with a hands-on class, the amount of time people have to paint is very limited. So introducing 2 figures, and maybe interesting if I have 2 different figures, and I am going to try to make some comparisons of if you did it the same way you did it on a normal size guy, on a big guy, this is what it would look like. But that will probably be through the magic of, yeah, that's actually a little mold line, I think. Right there, that was just a little piece sticking out. It might even have been something that got into my paint. But that one is a mold line, and that probably is too. I'm gonna hope that I can figure out colors that aren't too wacky and off, because now I have gone down to the plastic there. And this is actually the figure, you see this little thing here, and that's not the first rub off I've had. This is the figure that suggested to me it's probably good if you prime Bones USA. I don't think you have to. This is the only one of the ones I've painted that I didn't prime, and there are several of those that I've had that kind of problem with. But I think, unlike the is it PVC plastic that the classic bones are, that it is a different material. It's closer to resin. All right, this brown. This brown is also very dull, and I think needs some yellowing up. So the colors I had were Hackier Gold, which is probably what I used in the highlights, and owlbear brown. It's a chocolatey owlbear right there. And look at all these owlbears I painted that have no owlbear brown. What's wrong with me? And I grabbed, this is a polished leather, has a nice little yellow undertone, but I have yellow out, so I might just use that. So I want to keep the loot fairly dark. But I think I want to lighten up the leather a little. So I'm gonna go ahead and just use like a strokey brush movement, because if it kind of looks like wood grain, that is a good thing. That would be a desirable thing. And that kind of wood is often a little bit polished. So just giving it a little more life. Maybe we'll keep the leather a bit duller, I don't know. Just gonna make that a little more golden. I don't want to start competing with the sunflowers after all. But just add a few places where kind of assuming there's a little more polish, or picking out the sculpt a little more or something like that. Do some edging, that kind of thing also helps. Which I'm pretty sure I did in the first place, but because of, you know, the muted colors, it wasn't very obvious. So you will, if you've been here before, you may know that this is usually how I mix my paint, and this doing it on the brush thing is not something I do a lot of. But for these little touch-ups, because I'm really just shifting the hue and the value slightly, it's not, when I first started doing this or even thought about the idea, it seemed very intimidating. Like how can you come back in, especially if you don't know what colors you used, and fiddle with stuff? And starting with a value that's close to where you're putting the paint and then working up or down is more important than the hue. So not having the exact same green is less important than, you know, I had to kind of work down slowly to lighten up that whole area, sort of thing. If that makes sense, which it probably does not. All right, that's more than enough for that, but I kind of have to decide what I'm doing with these. And the answer might be not a lot. And I might not use the yellow to keep it, I swear I hear a cat scratching somewhere. What are you doing, guys? All right, I'm afraid to know. I have a very tiny bathroom, and there's a shelf unit built into the corner. So it's like 3 shelves, and that's pretty much where I have to put all my stuff. It's just the sink is standalone. There's no counter. And the trouble kitty has become interested in standing on the toilet and knocking things off of the lower shelves. And I thought the top shelf was safe. And then I got up this morning and discovered that she had knocked something off the top shelf. And I'm like, great. Because that's where I was putting, like, my wedding ring and earrings and stuff. But she didn't actually go for those. She went for the package of hair ties, which sort of makes sense because I have let her play with hair ties. But she's supposed to, I picked out some colors. I'm like, okay, these ones are yours. But she's not as good at Corbin at keeping track of them, I don't think. Because Corbin never really loses them. But we ended up, before the kittens came, I'm like, okay, some of these are pretty grungy looking. We will throw out, well, actually I threw out all the hair ties because I didn't want the kittens to mess with them until this one figured it out on her own and demonstrated that she was not going to eat them. She just wanted to run around being crazy. That's pretty much her goal in life, is run around being crazy and then sleep like Superman. That's what she wants to do. I mean, she likes snuggles and stuff too, and she likes snacks. But sometimes I think her sister likes snacks more because she's less likely, her sister's less likely to sleep through snack time. But you never really know who you're going to get, other than you always get Corbin. You always get Corbin at snack time. He's there for the snacks. That's what my wife said when I said, don't put that plant on the top shelf. It's going to land on my computer. I put several things away that were fragile because the lady said that they weren't very climby. But I'm like, they're at that age. So I put away things like that I really cared about. And then they're not that climby because they're really uncoordinated for cats. So they seem to be aware of it. So they aren't that ambitious with jumping usually. But then, they are cats, so they will go ahead and do atypical things sometimes. And she really doesn't, she just has to stretch a little more to get up on the shelf, I guess. Pendrake, if someone combined your current technique with Anne's color note cards habit, this touch-up business would be very straightforward. I do often take notes about what color I use, and I sometimes even do like swatches and stuff. The process has gotten more elaborate because of teaching, so that I have information, I have things to share with people. I like to do it this way because I want to, not every time. Like if I do know some of the colors I use, which in this case I know, I know all the Kickstarter colors were used, so I grabbed a bunch of those. But lots of people don't write stuff down. So I want to encourage them not to be afraid to try this just because they don't know exactly. Because the first one I did this with happened to be something that I had not written it down. And I had to kind of reconstruct it. And I didn't do too badly. I got most of it right, other than, I guess I couldn't remember the purple that I had used on the dress, so I ended up switching it to more of a pink, and it was fine. The color shift was fine. I didn't repaint the whole thing, but it still worked because, I was working within the value structures. did I like the original color better and did other people? Yes. But as a touching up thing, it worked fine. That's just a like color preference situation. So I don't, leather is often a little beat up, so I'm just gonna go with a little strokiness. But I am bad about keeping track on stream. Sometimes I will remember and take a picture, which is actually how I often do it now. Instead of writing stuff down, if I don't need to make swatches, I usually I put the miniature there, particularly the part of the miniature that I was working on that's pertinent, and take a picture. Of the actual paint bottles, which have my little color samples on them, so hopefully that's like sort of helpful or something. And there we lost some lining. Grey Mouser, she said, oh no, it's way too heavy. Yeah, I've seen a cat's determination to get to a plant. We did not have plants for a long time because Archer went crazy. And then we realized that having plants is challenging because that is how little light we get in our house. That we can't, there's like, I can put plants on kitchen windowsill, and that's about it. So I didn't have this really, I had a dark color, but not a color this dark for doing the original lining. We go over some of those lines. Oops, that was not a line. What's up, insane cat? Do you want to come get some more drugs and go to sleep? Or do you want to wander around causing trouble? I think we know which one you're going to pick. You're lucky you're so cute. But yeah, I don't know what, like, last time we got a new cat, I don't remember being that worried about all our stuff. But maybe I got some better stuff since then. But I was like, oh, they could run rampant on this dragon shelf and it would be very bad. I mean, most of them are stuffed animals because I know I have cats, and I would rather have cats than pretty fragile things. But I had bought a few pretty fragile things. And they're actually still in boxes. I guess I was waiting for the cats to get really tired. I don't know. Or I was just being lazy about it. I've waffled back and forth. I'm like, is it time? Is it time to bring out the stuff? Or is Tabby still too crazy? Well, the other thing that actually could have happened is that she might not have even been trying to get that. Because when I went to bed last night, there was like this enormous bug flying around. And they were both losing their minds. And I'm like, well, I realize that you might destroy the house while I'm asleep. Because you're very excited about this bug. But I gotta sleep. And I don't recall hearing any clingy, clashy type of thing going on. So I'm assuming that they either didn't catch the bug or they managed to catch the bug in such a way that nothing was destroyed other than possibly my hair ties. All right, I'm going to go in on the feathers now, I think. So do I even remember what I was doing there? No. But, so we've got, we've got this fresh brick that I don't think there's a ton of that in there. Do you think there's plenty of Requiem red? On. And I do think there's some lit pink, maybe? But for sure, there's Drow Blush. That's like the basis of it. And also probably Brutal Purple. And then I probably just put little notes of the other things here and there, and I use this yellow mold, and that's why it went yellowy, which is cool. I like the yellowy effect, but I think we need a little more shadows. And probably I need to do like a few whiter highlights, maybe. I'm hoping I can do it with shadows because, I mean, I don't know if it already looks like this poor guy is aging and getting some white feathers, I guess. If you were an aging bird person, that would be what happens to you. Oh, good. Now you're over there. She's so gonna start trying to walk over here. But no, do not chew brushes. That is very, very bad. We're gonna have to start working on a respect the desk type of training, I think. Do I have any idea of how to make this happen? No. No, I do not. So I'm gonna put a little bit of darkness back in. Like, I think I kind of went too far with the yellow in my attempts to get it to show up. And we made the shirt lighter for this purpose. Okay, what are you doing now? Sorry. The cat threatening nonsense is very distracting. And I know that there's some spottiness. It looks kind of weird, but we'll feather it all up in the end. Because this is a textured area. Oh, good. What are you doing? Hi. Hi. Hello. Brushes are not for you. Now they're gone. Oh my gosh, she does make me clean things sometimes because, you know, out of self-defense, I'm cleaning things to protect them from the madness. So this color is a little richer and deeper, so hopefully that will also help bring back some of these crevices and whatnot. She's like, she's right over there. She didn't technically go on this table. She went on the side table. She did a complete tour of the side table. Or it's like a rolling cart thing. I saw a couple cool ones recently with like smaller drawers. This just has shelves. It doesn't have drawers at all. There was one where it like came out from the corners, and I was like, oh, that looks like it'd be so much more useful. And then I looked up the prices, and I was like, no, I'll just live with my crappy shelves. Craft supply, furniture, art supply, tabourets is what they call the fancy little tables that you do painting on. Can be not insignificant in price. I was like, I don't think I'm like a tabouret person yet. I think I'm just a side table person still. So my hope is that if I move a little bit of this darkness up, first of all, it might make the bird look even sadder. But secondly, it adds a little more variation, so the lightness will pop out by comparison. I guess I'm giving him more double chin emphasis too, poor guy. But now he's balding and his feathers going white and he's got a double chin. No wonder he's sad. He's experiencing the frustrations of middle age. I don't know how I got this old. And it's not even so much like the wrinkles and stuff, not that I love these. But it's like, if I'm gonna be this old with the aches and the pains and the sad skin and whatnot, like, where's all my wisdom? Where's this wisdom I was promised? Why aren't I better at life? I'm gonna be old. So I feel like I got robbed. I did not move the camera up enough, did I? All right, we'll just go a little more. All right, is that helping? I think it is. Then we're gonna have to mess with the highlights a little bit, but I think it's helping. But before I get distracted, I want to remember the wings. I don't think I'm gonna change the feet. It's not the top story. I might want to lighten up the base. I don't know. I feel like it's kind of dark. Oh, I forgot to. I was going to show you guys this picture that helps explain it and is a good way to test your figures if you're worried about having some of the problems that I talk about with this one. And then I think I got distracted and forgot. So hold just a moment. So I showed you the shelfie, as it were, where, you know, if it's at ReaperCon and you're standing there with all these other colorful, big, exciting guys, it's not going to show up very much. But I also did, so if we look at it in grayscale, you can see a little better, I think, what I'm talking about how the values are not super differentiated through the figure, and even more apparent on the back, I would say. And where if we compare it to the one that was like blue and orange and stuff, this has, you know, first of all, it has the, you know, it goes up to pure white and it goes down to pure black. But there's also a little more, you know, this is lighter, this is mid, this is dark, this is light, this is mid. There's a little more variation between the areas to help distinguish them. And then this picture is, so you can see that black and white at the same time. So that's the guy I'm working on right now. And that's the one that's blue and orange. And that's the two of them in color. I don't know of a way to isolate the saturation to have demonstrated that the saturation on this was also somewhat lacking. Don't know if there's, I know how to, like, you can make a picture more or less saturated, but I don't know if you can isolate the saturation. To say I'm not like a photo pro would be putting it very mildly. Which I'm guessing that many of you have probably heard of some of the recent kerfluffles with big companies and artists. So one is Instagram, and well, I guess, and Facebook, because it's Meta. But Instagram in particular, I think, has pretty much said that I think they've already, but they will be using what gets posted to train their AI. So basically they're saying they can just use your stuff, is how a lot of artists are interpreting it. People in Europe can opt out. Well, they can try to opt out. I don't know if anyone actually listens to that stuff, but there's some form they can fill out. It make themselves feel like they opted out. But Americans do not even get that option. Now, as far as minis I've painted, they're all over anyway, because I give the pictures to Reaper, and then people use them in stores and eBay and all kinds of other stuff, so I'm not really sweating my miniatures. And my traditional art Instagram has not been added to for some time, and honestly, I'm not big enough for anyone to care. So I'm not especially freaking out about that. But as conceptually, am I happy about this? No. But then Adobe apparently is also requiring you agree to terms of service that are something like that if you want to continue using the products. Well, actually, whether or not you want to continue using the products, because there's a guy who just wants to get in to cancel his account, but he has to agree to the terms of service before he can get in and cancel his account that he wants to cancel because he doesn't agree with the terms of service. And it's like, all right. Pendrake. So if there is a drawing on Instagram an AI could use, incorporate, learn from it. I don't know about all AIs, but Meta's own AI. What people are saying is, I mean, I haven't read all the legalese or whatever, so I don't know that I'm an expert, but what it sounds like the terms of service now are is that if you post information, I don't think just a drawing, I think stuff you write on Facebook may fall under this too, I don't know, that AI can use it to train. Now, does that mean you're saying it can incorporate it? I don't think it matters what you say because I think that's how AI works. But yes, dodgy, not acceptable. Can I put some of this out? I don't think I put some of this out. Yeah, we need. Oops. Okay, I didn't even mean to put that much out. I'm missing my awesome dark red that I'm not going to attempt to say again. That's why it's looking so different, because that color is, even though it's quite dark, is kind of a little richer. Than the other two that were a bit more pastel. So I definitely wanted some of that to stay visible. But yeah, it seems pretty dodgy to me. I mean, they have lawyers, so I assume there's some reason why it's okay that they do it in the U.S. and the EU has different regulation. Often that's helpful. It's like California has some different rules now, and my husband works on an app, and they you know, they have to be compliant with California, and usually you're just going to get the same access to whatever the most restrictive thing is. It's like when you buy products and they say may cause cancer in the state of California, which the way they say it, it always seems like if you go to California, all of a sudden you're going to get some cancer. But it's more that they have written the law about chemicals and stuff, perhaps overly strictly, because I've seen that on restaurant doors when we've been there. So it's like everybody does it just to... It occurred to me suddenly that the hands are, in fact, part of the feathers and should have a similar color. Revision. The Photoshop thing almost even seems worse because, like, the programs that Adobe makes are specifically for creators to create. And that is why people have been using them. So, like, first they go to a subscription model. So you have to pay every month. I mean, I assume they have a yearly deal, but whatever. You used to just buy Photoshop and put it on your computer, and then you would have to pay if you wanted an upgrade. But then they switched to subscription, which I had already switched. We had like a super old copy, a legitimate copy of Photoshop when I first started miniature painting. And I think we were even able to upgrade it once or twice. But then when the next one came out, it was like so much more expensive that my husband was like, what if you use GIMP that is free? And I'm like, you're making me learn and change. But it GIMP is pretty good, and it's got a lot of features. I mean, there's a high learning curve just like there is with Photoshop. I mean, anytime you've got a lot of features, you get a high learning curve. What are you doing now? Oh my God. She's insane. But if you are looking for an alternative to Photoshop, or you'd like to start editing your miniature photos a little more and don't want to pay the amount of Photoshop, because like I don't do enough with the graphics program to make it worth paying very much for one. I highly recommend GIMP, and I know it's Mac and PC, but I think they might even have a Linux version, because I started using it on PC. And nowadays, it's even better, because you can be like, all right, I want to do this, and you just type that into Google with GIMP, like, how do I do blah blah in GIMP? And other than the times when like there's a specific, graphics using terminology for that thing, that will work pretty well. And even then, I mean, you might get someone who titled their YouTube video so that, regular people can understand it. Pendrake, we are okay with it if another human artist looks at our art and some other folks' art and melds it all into their own art. It doesn't seem so threatening. We're not completely okay with that. I mean, there is a line, and that line is both legal and moral. Like, I was looking at the Obama poster, if you remember that from some time ago, because that kind of explains what we're doing with shadows and highlighting. It's just, if you didn't do it with smooth blends, you would do that. So I was going to take it and then make it smooth as an example, because when I first started working on this class, it was more face oriented. I still might use that, but I don't know. And in the event of doing that, looking up the pictures and stuff, I discovered that the guy who did that used someone else's photograph, and she was actually quite perturbed about that. And I believe there was a lawsuit. So there's totally a line. The line is not always very obvious. Well, the actual, like, Obama part was a picture this lady had taken of Obama. And his art is not exactly what you saw on the poster. He did a multimedia thing where there's like some textures and stuff in some of the, the strips. So his thing is actually a little more complicated. But I don't think it helped that he denied at first that he used this photograph, but it's like once you see it, it's like, oh, because the poster is actually kind of a weird pose. It's like his head is slightly tilted back, and it's not an obvious, like, it's not a pose I would have chosen, I don't think, for that purpose, because it's not like a standard position that people go in. I'm not sure how to explain that, but it's just, and there's stuff like that. But then you get something like, oh, who's the guy? There's some guy who did like pop art Superman, and then Andy Warhol's soup cans, and that is okay because there's, some of the rules are about commentary and how much transformation you do and stuff. So it's definitely not a clear-cut thing. But usually when people are learning from other artists, like, the goal is you take a whole bunch of different things, and after you remix them, it would be stylistic elements, not something as specific as that poster thing. And the remix should be different enough because you've combined, like, a lot of art and a lot of creativity is unusual combinations. Like, humor is like that. Color schemes can be like that. So there's kind of like you copy to learn in some art. areas of study, master copies, and even if you have a miniature someone's done that you really admire, like trying to paint one, the same figure to look the same way, and figure out how they did it, it can be a valuable learning exercise. But then when you post it, you wouldn't say, "This is my miniature." You would say, "This is a master study of so-and-so's miniature," is what you're supposed to do, kind of thing. But then it's like after you did that a bit and you started painting your own miniatures, there should be enough things that, either are inherent to you or that you've picked up from other places that even if you wanted to, your miniatures probably wouldn't look exactly like theirs, stylistically. And I mean, that's what a lot of people are doing with AI, is stuff like, I want this in the style of so-and-so. Like there's this one fantasy artist that is like the most used term on Midjourney or something. And he says his commissions have gone down since then. There's supposed to be software you can run your picture through that messes up a computer but doesn't change what it looks like to your eye. But I will admit, one of the few AI things that doesn't annoy me that much is when people do stuff like Star Wars in the style of that one movie director, because that was just hilarious. But I get why, if he was upset, I would get it, because that is his style that he's very specifically developed over a long period of time. But, if he wants to remake Star Wars, I think that might be hilarious. I guess we want someone to sue if their effort is too similar, but an AI is the ultimate anonymous actor. It's actually, I mean, they're getting better, but when AI images first started getting posted and stuff, people were finding their signatures incorporated into AI images and other things of that nature, that it was remixing. It wasn't like I'm taking this concept and doing it in a similar style. It was, in some cases, very obviously remixing images together. But I've seen things occasionally that fool me. Like sometimes I know what to stop and take a second look for, but it's getting better and better. It's not all, it's AI because it's got 17 fingers or whatever. They've started teaching it not to have 17 fingers. It tends to be, I think, the thing that will point it out now is overly perfectness. Like faces are too smooth and don't have any, variations in the skin tone. Because, there should be places on your face that are more red or more, look a little blue because it's in the shadows or whatever. Or just different textures. There should be like a lot of that on the skin, and they often don't do that. Or like just like it'll do the bokeh effect of things in the distance, but often if you stop and look at it, it kind of, where stuff is doesn't necessarily make sense. But like you gotta stop and look to see stuff at that level if you're talking about that kind of thing. And I don't know that I would expect it, because I've had friends who are like, "How can you not tell this is CG?" And it's like, okay, people accept a lot of Instagram filtered images of actual humans that do not look remotely human. Or even I was talking to Julie about this the other day. There's this girl that works in a local store who, she must watch these makeup tutorials and stuff like that. And so she's done her makeup very like I guess in miniature terms, I would say the brush skills are very obvious, but some of the overall choices, like the stuff that I'm adjusting right now, are less amazing, is maybe how I would think of it. And then, so she's got this like very obviously trying to make your skin tone look smooth and perfect like the filters do. And then she puts fake freckles on. And it's like, if you have enough foundation on to make your skin tone look smooth and perfect, I would never be able to see your actual freckles. But on top of that, even though, like, she's done them different sizes and stuff, but they should also be, it should be kind of like this. Some of the freckles would look darker, some of them look like, because they're, the skin's kind of translucent and you see it at different levels and stuff. But if you haven't sat around and thought about that stuff and you're, because you're about to teach a class at Reapercon about that, would you notice? Like, does everyone notice that her freckles look fake? Or do I notice because I've been painting portraits and miniatures and whatnot for like 7 years? I don't know. I think it would be rude to stop and ask my fellow shoppers, so I have not done that. But it's an interesting question. And now, if you spend most of your time on Instagram and you're used to seeing people with filters to make, and they can do it on film now too. There are some people I watch on YouTube and I'm like, there's no way you are not using some kind of filter to make your skin look super smooth, because you have done it to the point where it's freaking me out. But I don't know that it would freak out the average person, because I'm like, look, I can tell from other things that you're at least 40. So there's no way that this is your skin. And to me, it looks weird and unnatural, and I'd rather see the blemishes and the imperfections and the things that make us all unique and cool looking. But I don't know that that feeling is widespread. Right. Hendrik, I get mostly airplanes on my Instagram feed. I don't actually get, I have very carefully curated my Instagram, so it's pretty much all artists posting their work. And then, so either miniatures on the one account or paintings and drawings on the other one. Other than my art account, I guess because of, it notices when you stop and look at the videos, so it's now figured out that I like cats. Which took it a long time. The algorithm took a long time, considering how much I like cats, to realize. So I have been sucked into some cat videos. But I know from watching other YouTube videos and, reading articles and stuff, that there are a lot of people doing like lifestyle and fashion and stuff like that on YouTube. YouTube and Instagram. Every now and then the YouTube algorithm will lose its tiny mind and be showing me things that are popular. And it's like, look, I thought that you had figured out by now that anything 1.5 million people watched, I probably will not want to watch. Please stop showing this to me. So then I have to go through and go, not interested, don't show me this page ever again. Try to retrain it to just show me, arts, crafts, stuff from like the British Museum, anything by Mary Beard, and ASMR. That's all I want to see on YouTube. Which I admit is a somewhat eclectic mix of things. But I also hate that for Instagram, so I've got it so it's only artists, but then they just push reels so hard that everybody has to make reels. And sometimes I'm like, dude, I want to see what your picture looks like standing still. Like, I appreciate the peek behind the curtain on the process and stuff. Sometimes I just want to see the picture of the actual thing. But a lot of artists are, I don't think a lot of them are leaving Instagram, but they've started accounts on something called Cara, Cara, that pledges, not to use AI. And I think they even have recently added an AI scrambler thing. So before your images get uploaded, it uses the scrambler thing. Which I have zero idea how that works. But because this all blew up pretty fast, they got kind of overwhelmed. And of course, there's nowhere near the audience. And then a lot of artists are like, well, okay, but if only artists go over, does that help? Because, part of the reason they're doing Instagram is to get people to see their art and want to buy prints or whatever, do commissions. It's not, for miniatures, we usually just have one of the thing and we're showing off the thing just for fun. But most artists are trying in some way to make a living at it. And I was also listening to okay, it wasn't video, but I really was mostly just listening to a video about kind of what's going on with Etsy, that it's less Etsy-ish. And the short version is stock market investors, as it is for so many things that have been ruined. So they just want to make money. They don't care if it holds to the original purpose of, artistic or handmade things, not mass market things. Because I've noticed, I see a lot of the same stuff on there for like crafts and stuff. Materials to craft rather than crafts that I might see on Amazon. And that doesn't seem like what you want. So I don't know. Is it better? Do we think it's better? I think it's better. Do I need to add a little more to his little feathers? What happens if I whiten that? What do we get? We get pink. So I apologize for all my cheeriness. I normally keep all those thoughts in my inside voice. But some of that seemed relevant for mentioning. Anyway, short version, go get GIMP because it's free and you can do what you need to do to your miniature photos. I mean, not that phone software is, if you're not trying to sell miniatures, phone software at this point is pretty darn good, I have to say. It doesn't seem that long ago that I would go buy like a cheap, not for miniatures, but for like everyday photos. I would get like a cheap little point and click camera for events where I didn't want to like carry around a full camera, but I wanted pictures that didn't suck because phone pictures pretty much sucked. But now they are much better. And I'm, for the most part, pretty happy with the work in progress pictures I take with my phone and stuff. It's just, you know, for giving Ron something that, because he'll print stuff sometimes, like make posters or put it on product boxes or whatever. So I give him like super high resolution pictures, which would not be possible on my phone yet, I don't think. All right, should I call that good? Did I make him too white feathery on the top? I fear that I did. Let's add a little more of this purple back. Oh, and I never did do the hands, did I? No. All right. Hopefully the paint will stay wet long enough for me. Now, I don't mind if the hands are not quite as standing out as the face. I mean, in this case, the hand is definitely part of the story because it's playing the instrument. But it should still be a slightly lesser part of the story than the face. So I'm not going to put as much yellow onto the hand, I don't think. But let's get a little bit of the darker and bring out the cylinder of the arm a little more. And the other arm as well. Oh, and he's got a little thumb back here, of course, because otherwise, how is he holding that? Give a little more here just to add some, you know, something for your eye to do while you're looking at the back. Pendrake, I got Nat Geo, Wapelius, Flight International, Brush for Hire, NASA, Ian McHugh, in no particular order. Brushed at a Pride Dragon with rainbow-enabled wings. That sounds interesting. Didn't see any today, but usually there is lots of Airfix stuff. I probably should allow National Geographic stuff more. I watch a lot of PBS things, even though we have a subscription to PBS and I can watch them on my TV place. Sometimes I only watch it on Yahoo for some reason, or YouTube. There are, of course, miniature people on my YouTube too. But sometimes it's like I'm just interested in how are people teaching stuff, as well as I'm interested in, yes, please tell me about all these new things that I don't need to buy, but I'm going to want to buy. I don't have a problem. I'm fine. That happens worse with regular art supplies. Other than I got over buying all the miniatures at some point. I mean, because it's impossible, among other things. But getting paint is harder for me to resist. Like, I do often resist it, but I have to have a little internal battle with myself to do so. So I don't know. Hopefully he looks a little better than he did before. I am inclined to feel like I should lighten up that base some. And in fact, I think most of the bases I painted the other day, like last week with you all, are a little, you know, the rocks are a little dark and stuff. But I don't know. I'm definitely going to fix the Evil Mermaid. Her whole base is just starting out way too dark, and I think I need to lighten the whole thing up. But let's see if I can just do a little bit with this guy's base before we let Quindy go do the things that Quindy does at 5. Since I've added more color elsewhere, I don't think it's going to be a problem to give a little more brown on the base. I made it a very dull. You can see like putting this brown on, which I do not consider to be like a super saturated brown. And so if you look at this part, here I'll try to get it in the light, and that brown just looks so much richer compared to what was already there. It was a very desaturated approach. And then we'll mix in some of the Hackier Gold. Hopefully, because it's kind of pinky purpley, and now we're adding yellowy. Hopefully that will be a nice. You know what? While we're here, we're gonna put in some green, because where's this totally barren place this guy's hanging out? And then that will tie in with the tunic a little bit. I do want it to be dark around the feet. So I don't know if looking at the picture would help or not, but let's do a little before and after. All right, so no idea if that helps, but hopefully I've zhuzhed them up a little, and the critique made sense. If you came in halfway through, before I started the repainting, the touch-up painting, I gave it a critique, kind of like you would get if you entered something in the MSP Open at ReaperCon and then went around and asked artists for feedback, or like sometimes people have Patreons where they'll give feedback and stuff like that, and then often they'll digitally do what I did to show you what it would look like if you implemented the feedback. I'm just going to look real quick and see. Here, I'll keep them here so there's something to look at. I'm talking about that poster because I was trying to do something with that poster, and I wonder if I can find it. Or if I only have 400 saved pictures of what color, what will happen to your BG3 outfits if you dye them. Because that was important for me to know. So right, this is his original thing where I said there's actually like textures and stuff, which they did not put into the, I guess that's the one that was the poster. So there's that, and I haven't quite finished, but if you start to smooth out the transitions, the values are correct. We get all obsessed about smoothness and you don't need contrast and stuff, and you do need shadows. You need shadows and highlights on faces, and even if you have someone with very pale skin, they still are going to have some areas of deeper shadow. And if you have somebody with darker skin, they are still going to have some areas with lighter highlights, which actually there are posts on my blog about that if you hadn't already seen them. Do I know what they're called? No. Just search for faces. I bet those will come up pretty early on. So I did not get to owlbears or eye monsters, but hopefully that was useful. And I think sometimes when you get critique, you don't, if you're nervous about doing this, and I don't do this with all my figures that I've put in a contest by any means. Sometimes it's like a souvenir, or it's like this is a signpost of this is where I was at this time, and I don't want to mess with it. So I think it's helpful for those of us who aren't great at visualizing, which is definitely me, to see, okay, somebody says do this. What does that actually look like if you do that? So that is what I was trying to do here. Hopefully it worked. Hopefully I will get my photo setup back going so I can show you actual, photo to photo at some point. But that's all dependent on the cat, who is now over there sleeping like she's such a good little baby and never causes any problems at all. Lies. So many lies. But she is my little baby. And I love her. She's my little butt. She always wants to be in the room with me. So I'm going to let Quindy find us someone to raid so we can keep enjoying color and figures and whatever. She always finds us cool stuff. You're welcome. Zachariah, and I'm glad I figured out how to lure them on stream, at least some of the time. So we didn't get much chai today. Yes, she likes sleeping in comfort, and she must have decided that having her sister's pokey feet in her face probably wasn't going to be comfortable. And having had her sister's pokey feet in my face this morning, I can agree that it is not comfortable. So I'll just keep vamping, and we can keep looking at an adorable kitty while Quindy finds us a raid. Can I kind of zoom in on an adorable kitty? Ooh. Here she is. She's very asleep. These guys are very good at sleeping, I think, because, they've never really been afraid of danger. We will be raiding Mighty Lancer. So say hi, spread the Reaper love, and I'll see you next week. Maybe I'll do another, critique and repair, or we'll finally conquer the evil mermaid. But one way or another, we'll do something. As ever, you can DM me or let me know in whatever way if there's some particular content you'd love to see. And I'll see y'all later. Bye, everybody.